Hello, boys, girls, and fellow intellectuals. This is Reason, that voice in your head you should listen to. For instance, don't put a fork in an electrical socket, or don't stick your member in a pencil sharpener. And this one is easy. Don't advocate for...
Let's have a nice, civil discussion on pedophilia.
Oh, for fuck's sakes. This is Amos Yee. He's going to give us his argument for pedophilia, and I'm going to take it apart. Still wondering why he thought this would be a good video. I'm putting a fallacy counter up in the top left so we can see how many fallacies he commits throughout the video.
I've made videos and tweets about this topic before, but I don't think that the points I made previously will be as clear as the ones that I will make in this video. And also at that time, I went around calling everyone a fascist for those who disagree with me. Yeah, I don't think I should have done that. It seems pretty dickish.
Well, it's good to accept when you are wrong. You obviously didn't pay attention to the arguments of your dissenters. And yes, that is dickish for the fact that you can't rationalize your stance on this topic, hence the name calling.
So if people want to most accurately represent my position on this issue, cite this video. Take this video as a far better draft 2.
If that's what you want, then I will. Just don't get all upset when I make your argument crumble.
Let's begin. First, we need to agree on just one thing, that sexual abuse is not determined by age, but instead on whether or not the relationship involves consent.
No, I'm sorry, Amos. The thing is that children lack the capacity to fully understand what they're consenting to. Not only that, but due to the mind of a fully developed adult being more capable of complex thought, you would be manipulating them, seeing as the mental development of the child is below that of the adult. I haven't even covered mental and physical health issues that child molestation causes. And no, Amos, children cannot consent.
Most people would make the absolute broad generalization that any kid that is below the age of 12 are not able to consent to sex.
I would say anyone below 14 is unable to consent to such actions with that of someone their own age, let alone a full-grown adult.
But then one day, a 42-year-old adult comes along and says that while he was 10 years old, he had a perfectly consensual sexual relationship with a 30-year-old adult. 10-year-old him was not traumatized afterwards, the relationship was perfectly fine and consensual, and both of them enjoyed the sexual relationship.
Okay, Amos, you just committed what I consider a skeptic's sin. Anecdotal evidence is not a valid form of evidence due to its inaccuracy of information and being much less accurate than that of statistical data. What you are doing is basing an argument on a logical fallacy. And you know what happens when you build a house on top of sand instead of a solid foundation, right?
So do you think that that kind of relationship should not happen? That just because the child was below 18, that relationship that was perfectly harmless should be considered child rape?
Nice loaded question. And yes, I do believe that it is not acceptable in any circumstance. Now, maybe this dude feels that way, but for the vast majority of the population, they tend to develop mental health issues and, depending on the actions taken during said abuse, actual physical harm.
No! That's absolutely ridiculous. Nobody was harmed.
In one instance out of millions of cases, do you see the issue with using anecdotal evidence as the basis for your argument yet?
And this is not a fantasy story that I just pulled out of my ass.
Must refuse making prison joke. Bet you used to pull a lot out of your ass. Damn it.
There are numerous stories of children below the age of 12 who have had mutually beneficial relationships, sexual relationships, with adults.
Anecdotal evidence. Shit, Amos, most of the skeptic community knows better than what you are doing. If you do see this video, I'm leaving a few links you should check out to help you understand why your argument is shit.
So if you agree that that kind of relationship should be completely fine and legal, then you should also agree that every relationship between a child and an adult is alright as long as it involves consent.
There is a distinct difference between giving an adult family member a hug and having sex with an adult when you are a child. Nice try to false equivalence. You know, I would think you were attempting to hold the consistency principle over your dissenter's head if I didn't know any better.
Let's continue. Now, I'm absolutely certain that we should not discriminate against pedophiles. Our society's treatment of pedophiles is inhumane and horrendous. Oh my gosh.
You know what else is inhumane and horrendous? Raping children. The punishment in no way matches the crime in my eyes. When you harm a child in such a way that you are putting them at risk for PTSD, depression, borderline personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder, bulimia nervosa, and you make them 3.5 times more likely to abuse controlled substances and make them 2 to 5 times more likely to attempt suicide, and this is just mental health issues, Amos, you can say there's an issue with it.
A pedophile is simply defined as an individual who has a sexual attraction to children. That's it. It doesn't mean he's going to molest children. It doesn't even mean he's going to act upon his sexual urges. All he has is the non-violent sexual attraction to children.
Yes, I understand that, and I'll tell you what I believe should be done about such an issue. Therapy, neurology, and a vasectomy if steps 1 and 2 don't work. The truth of the matter is, if they want help because they understand it's wrong, then fine, help them. But when it comes to jackasses like you, who think it's okay to fuck kids, there's a different course of action. Hence why I'm making this video.
If you have the desire to rape children, then yeah, that's bad. But most pedophiles, like most people, do not want child abuse.
That's like saying let the fox guard the hen house from the other foxes. Yeah, there's a bit of a mental disconnect you're having with your own argument.
Most pedophiles and people in NAMBLA absolutely condemn rape and child abuse.
Yes, there is. Let me try the spoon-feeding method real quick. 1. The child does not have the capacity to make a mature and informed decision. 2. The vast majority of children who are molested, and that is what pedophiles do, suffer severe mental illnesses and physical injuries. 3. It is illogical to attempt to have a consent-based relationship if one party cannot consent. Was that clear enough for you?
Whether you were biologically born with that sexual orientation or you were influenced by your surroundings, if you just have the desire to have a perfectly consensual sexual relationship with a child, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And pedophiles, like the LGBT community...
Let me stop you right there. I know people from the LGBT community. They denounce the bullshit people like you and Heart Progress try to push into their community. No one's buying this bullshit, Amos.
Seem to exist in very significant numbers in society. Why should we immediately discriminate against such a huge group of people, say that they are scum and they should be imprisoned when they have done absolutely nothing wrong?
I'm not saying put non-offenders in prison, but I am saying they need to seek help. Also, small note, but you just appealed to popular opinion. May not be popular here, but by using the fact that a large group of people agree with you as a validation, you have appealed to popular opinion.
There are people who realize that they have a sexual attraction to children, but since society discriminates against pedophiles so much, these people contemplate suicide. There are even stories in the US where adults apply electroshock therapy to boys as young as 12 who think that they have a sexual attraction to children. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, well, I gave you my opinion on treatment, but this last little thing on shock therapy seems pretty stupid to me. First, this was during the 1950s, and the treatment was still on a child. It is natural for children around this age to be attracted to those still within the same age group. Do I agree with the treatment? No, not really, and even now it's only used as a last resort when other types of treatment simply fail to have any effect.
I do not want to live in a society where we condone this kind of discrimination and hostility towards a group of people who have done absolutely nothing wrong. This is vile. This is absolutely horrible.
For someone destroying someone else's chance at a normal life before it even starts, it's too lenient. If I were to have my way, it would be a death sentence, but we have it where instead they are basically exiled for such behavior. What pedophiles do to children is cruel and vile and horrendous, Amos. But you want to defend someone giving into their carnal urges at the cost of a child's well-being. If anyone is the sick one here, it is you.
If a child and an adult have consensual sex, they both film it, and they both agree that it's fine for the footage to be on the internet, there's absolutely nothing wrong done. Why should it be illegal?
You look astonished that it's illegal. But, as I said before, children cannot consent.
In the US, for producing child porn, an adult gets a minimum of 15 years in prison and a maximum of 30. That is fucking insane! Even worse is most countries criminalize simply possessing child pornography. Possessing child pornography, a completely non-violent act, whether you viewed it based on sexual attraction or non-sexual curiosity, in the US, you get a minimum of 5 years in prison and a maximum of 15. What the fuck? And even if I gave you the benefit of the doubt and said that, okay, all child sex is rape, and so all child pornography is essentially footage of rape, is it wrong to upload or view footage of child rape? No! Now, people might argue that the reason why footage of child porn or child rape should be banned is because having it on the internet would promote such behavior. However, the fact is, there really is no evidence that there's a link between watching violent footage and an increase in violent crimes, and if there is, please show it to me.
Look, I understand if it is being used to track down the perpetrators of such a heinous act, but no, it should not be produced in the first place for obvious reasons, and using it in such a manner is still wrong because, again, the child cannot consent, and by having said pornography, you are violating that child's privacy, and you can cause them further pain as they develop mentally, and could very well trigger the mental illness caused by said molestation from just them knowing it's out there.
It's kind of like the people who say that having the death penalty helps reduce crime, or banning violent movies helps reduce violence.
Tell me, Amos, if you wanted to rape a child, but you knew if you did, you'd be sentenced to death, would you follow through with it? Because that is the deterrent. As for violent movies, there is no proof of causation between violent acts and watching violent movies.
Like, it seems like there would be a logical connection, but the fact is, there's absolutely no evidence to show that there is a connection. Uploading and watching footage of real violence should not be illegal, similar to how you should not be sent to prison if you see footage of a reporter getting beheaded by a Muslim.
Yeah, but see, the difference is what the footage is being used for. If your intent is to investigate what has happened, then by all means, but if you're jacking off to either child pornography or someone being beheaded, then you really should seek mental help.
It doesn't mean you want to conduct violence when you watch footage of real violence. It just means that you might have a curiosity at how horrible human beings can be.
Wait, did you just debunk your own argument? So you agree that having sex with children is wrong? Because, I mean, you just said so yourself.
Bottom line, producing and uploading footage of child porn should be absolutely fine and legal. If you want to upload and possess footage of child rape, that should be fine too. Punish the guy who actually raped the kid.
Producing child porn is wrong, and it's wrong to upload. On the chance that you stumble across something like that, the only appropriate way to react is to send it to those who have the means to track down those who committed such an atrocity. Or if you have the means, find them yourself and send the information to those who have the ability to act on it.
Many people are willing to reduce the age of consent to whatever subjective opinion they have on how much brain development a child should have before they are capable of consenting to sex, whether that age be 12, 13, or 14.
Amos, the brain isn't fully developed until about 25 years of age, and the age of consent is 18 in the US and about 16 in different parts of Europe. The reason why the age of consent is 18 or 16 instead of 25 is due to the level of maturity around said age. Sure, it's subjective, but this level of maturity starts to increase into your 20s, so 18 or 19 is fair.
Now, I would argue and ask, why do you think that kids and babies aren't able to consent to sex?
Are you seriously going to argue that a baby can consent to sex? Oh boy.
Babies consent to sucking their thumb, to sleeping, to choosing the fire truck over the Hello Kitty during play. They are perfectly able to show approval right when they're born.
Okay, if the brain isn't fully developed until age 25, how the absolute fuck do you come to the conclusion that a baby, for instance, a 2-year-old, knows what the fuck sex is and how it can adversely affect them? I have younger siblings myself, and I can't get them to sit down and watch a cartoon for 2 minutes, and they scream and cry when they get disciplined for smacking each other. That's immaturity, Amos. It's a sign that they lack problem-solving skills, let alone the ability to delve into complex thought. And sure, babies can discern what toy they want, but they sure as hell can't discern what it means to have sex. They don't even understand their own anatomy, so to say that they can consent is ludicrous and stupid.
If a baby is curious about a man's genitals and he comes over and plays with it, that is a sexual act.
Okay, first question. Why would a man have his genitals visible to an infant in the first place? Second, children are not sexual. They haven't even gone through puberty yet. You know, the stage of life where you actually start feeling sexual attraction and your body starts to change drastically to equip you for adulthood.
But that is completely fine and harmless. Why should there be a problem with that? So I disagree that babies and kids aren't able to consent to sex. But even if I give it to you that, okay, all children below the age of 12 aren't able to consent to sex, does that mean that we should just reduce the age of consent to 12 and not eliminate age of consent laws entirely? No! You see, and this is where the pretty nuanced thinking comes in, so brace your brains. There is a clear distinction between a person who is able to consent and the ability to be allowed to engage in consensual acts. A child is not able to consent to sex below the age of 12, but say the impossibility happens and an 11-year-old consents to sex. Is that fine? Absolutely.
Okay, for a second, let's play devil's advocate. Let's say there's an 11-year-old with a brain that's fully developed. Even if they can consent, their body is still not adapted to have sex. Just due to the proportional difference of the parties involved, the child would still be at risk for physical harm, ranging from internal lacerations and bleeding to internal damage that can be irreversible. And if that child happens to contract an STD from said intercourse, it can cause issues for them when they go through puberty. Either way, Amos, someone is getting hurt. Alright, I'm done with this sad excuse of a video. By the way, Amos, with all those fallacies you've committed, we're going to have to revoke your skeptic membership. As for the rest of you beautiful people, if you enjoyed the video, please like and share, and if you haven't already, subscribe. I'd like to thank my patrons for supporting this channel. It means the world to me. So thank you GhostDog999, My2Cents, and Pipsqueak for your support. Now remember to stay reasonable, and when you build your argument on fallacies, it's not an argument at all.